Voters in Bayelsa and Kogi State will go to the polls to elect their governors. In Bayelsa State, 889,308 out of the registered 923,182 voters are expected to participate in the exercise in the 8 local government areas of the state. And in Kogi State, 1,485,828, that is 90% of the percentage will turn out of 1,646,000 registered voters are equally expected to discharge their franchise in tomorrow's governorship elections in the 21 local government areas of Kogi State, that is. Apart from the governorship election, voters are expected in Kogi State to vote for the Kogi West Senatorial District, which will have another opportunity to have a shot at that district because a court of appeal had nullified the earlier election, that is the February election I had earlier referred to, the February election which produced Dino Melai. And now the people of Kogi West will again vote because that election had been nullified. Now, the electoral body, INEC, the police force, which is the leading security agency in the conduct of the election, and other security agencies participating in the governorship election in the state, have assured Nigerians that they are fully prepared for the exercise. So, what is the affair? What is the state of affairs of the two states in terms of logistics, distribution of sensitive materials, and deployment of personnel to the various registration areas and centers for the subsequent polling and the subsequent polling units? How prepared are the voters to discharge their franchise? These are some of the things that we shall be looking at as the Nigerian Television Authority opens its studios for the Kogi and Bayelsa elections. Welcome to the special transmission of these two governorship elections in these two states. I am Femi Okeowo. Already in the studio are two of our guests who will be extraying these issues we have talked about, the issues of the election in Kogi State and in Bayelsa State. And I have first someone who you are very used to on this platform. He is Jide Ojo by name, a public affairs analyst and a columnist. Mr. Ojo, you're welcome to this.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
We also have a lecturer at the Bayes University, and he is Dr. Mukhtar Imam. You're welcome to Kogi and Bayelsa Decides, if we can call it that way. Okay. But for now, before we go into our analysis here, let's take a background report which will set the stage for this outing.
It was not the wish of this calm, sleepy state of Kogi to isolate itself in the election of a governor, but was compelled by political exigencies. It all started after the 2007 general elections. Ibrahim Idris of the People's Democratic Party was re-elected to a second term in the 2007 general elections. But later in the year, his re-election was nullified by INEC due to a complaint to the Election Petitions Tribunal by Abubakar Audu of the then ANPP, who was excluded by INEC from participating. And in February 6, 2008, the Court of Appeal upheld this ruling and ordered a new election within 90 days. A rerun was conducted and Ibrahim Idris won in 2008. So, this was how the history of off-cycle elections in Kogi State started. Like twin brothers, the 2007 general elections that brought in Timipre Silva of Bayelsa State was also challenged, and a ruling at the Court of Appeal in Port Harcourt nullified the election and ordered for fresh election within 90 days. Just like in Kogi State, Timipre Silva also won in Bayelsa. In both Bayelsa and Kogi states, the speakers of the state houses of assembly were in charge of the governance process for 90 days. As if nature created them with the same chemistry, in 2015, both states had inconclusive elections and shared a sad history of political violence that is still a major concern to the electoral umpire.
Both are politically volatile. Elections have been severely disrupted in the past by violence.
Now, Kogi and Bayelsa states are in their final push for the delivery of new governors. States with not much vast and diverse people, 21 local government areas in Kogi and 8 local government areas in Bayelsa State. INEC is set for the conduct in 239 electoral wards in Kogi State and 105 in Bayelsa. 3,504 polling units in Kogi State, while Bayelsa boasts of 2,244. Ad hoc staff, mostly National Youth Corps members, 15,868 will be in Kogi State, while 9,945 for Bayelsa State. 1,485,828 votes.
On election day and during the process of collation and declaration of results.
In Bayelsa State, we are deploying about 31,041 personnel to cover the election. In Kogi State, we are deploying about 35,200 personnel to cover the election. These personnel are to cover every terrain in the 2 states. No tout will be allowed to be brought from any other adjoining state to these states to disrupt elections. All those areas will be mined. Vote buying, as usual, will not be tolerated. Anybody seen close to any polling unit trying to buy votes will be promptly arrested.
For the last 1 week, the courtrooms were really busy, but INEC seems not distracted. All is now set. The ball is at the scoreline. In less than 24 hours, the names of those who will finally score the goals will be announced. Mayor Ogidi, NT News.
Thank you, Mayor. While that background report was going on, we were joined by someone who has enriched this panel, I must say, because he is in the eye of the storm now, and you will get to know that from some of the things we would be talking about in this session. He is the INEC National Chairman in charge of Information and Voter Education, Mr. Festus Okoye. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Platform. Allow you to take your breath. He's been running between the Federal High Court and the Court of Appeals, either in Bayelsa or in Abuja. So I'll allow you to take your breath while I go to Jide Ojo. Nigerians are right if they think that we're supposed to be used to elections by now. But every time an election comes, it's like we're running around and trying to get things right. The background to this election, particularly Kogi and Bayelsa, does not seem to settle Nigerians that we are used to elections. What's your comment about that?
Well, that's a perception issue. But Nigeria has been voting since 1923.
Yes.
And that's almost, if my math is right, it's over 90 years of electoral, although in between we've had some decades of military intervention. And we're in our 4th republic now, so it's been like 20 years and 6 electoral cycles that we have witnessed in the
in this Fourth Republic. So we ordinarily should be used to election. But, as we are getting used to the electoral process and election, we are also getting used to the negative aspect of it, which is electoral violence, vote buying, logistical challenge, and all of that, which is what I think we should not be getting used to, because that should not be our new normal. Mm-hmm. It should not be our new normal that at every election we must lose lives. At every election we must have casualty, either a party secretariat getting raised or INEC.
Elections, but we are confronted with the myriads of problems. How do we, what machinery, Dr. Mokhtar, should we use to bring up the positives of our democratic growth?
Well, thank you very much. You see, election, like with every other social activity, is a continuum. Okay. And like with every social activity that has to do with human interaction and human phenomenon and so on and so forth, there are bound to be challenges. You would have issues back and forth. It's a norm, so to speak, because of the conditioning of the human person. But beyond that, we should have gotten to a point where election, being one of the major tenets of a democracy, should be seen as entrenched in Nigeria, given where we're coming from, and the fact that we've had successive civilian-to-civilian transition in the last couple of years. To answer your question, I think it's a twin issue, and it will require two distinct institutions to deepen the ideals which we're trying to talk about. The electoral umpire is a very, very cardinal pillar in this regard. Yes, of course, INEC has done significantly well in respect to voter education, in respect to the organization of stakeholder meetings and so on and so forth. Activities have gone under in the last couple of months, yes, which basically INEC should be applauded for. So we've seen a lot of progress on the part of INEC. On the other hand, political elites, political parties themselves have a responsibility which they have underperformed in that regard. We have not seen the political parties carry up the responsibility of voter education, of trying to instill discipline in their followers. This is one of the very key areas that political parties need to do a lot more. It is not just about 4-year circle and returning back to the people and trying to canvass for vote and kneeling down and so on and so forth. There should be some systemic arrangement, some mechanisms need to be put in place internally within party structures that would allow them to, as we see in other advanced climes, educate voters consistently within the 4-year circle. Election does not just come and end within that period of voting and so on and so forth. It's a consistent, like I said, it's a continuum. And so political parties need to be seen to entrench discipline. I know a couple of NGOs, Westminster Foundation for Democracy, for example, that have tried in their small capacity to see how they, Yaga is also trying to see how they can instill discipline, because it all spans from discipline. Okay. You know, discipline is the mother of it all. The moment you have a bunch of indisciplined lot, every other thing will fail. Political reforms will not augur well. Nigeria has seen it all. No political system is sacrosanct. None is a religion. We have tried to adopt a couple of them, but look where we are. Micro and macroeconomic policies will not take the direction which they should take. And so you find that people consistently become stagnated. So, of course, these two institutions need to do a lot more. But by and large, in the long run, it is about Nigerians. Yes. It's about the voters, because leadership is about the people. And if the people are not willing to change their mindset, if the people are not changing the things that galvanizes their thoughts, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for these institutions to instill the discipline in them. You have to be willing, first and foremost. So the social psychological conditioning of an average Nigerian is his biggest problem.
Mr. Okoye, you would have noticed that we have started on a general note.
Yes.
And some of the things that Dr. Mokhtar and Jide Ojo have said are things that in your official capacity you find yourself teaching and telling both Nigerians and the political class. Now, let's begin to narrow down. We started this way because we did not see a shift in Kogi and Bayelsa in terms of the agitation, in terms of the fight, the fear that accompanies election in Nigeria. What have you done differently this time to make things go differently? Possibly it may have started this way, but from tomorrow, the die must be cast. What have you done, INEC, to make sure something changes along the line?
Well, we have done a lot. After the 2019 general elections, we felt that we needed to sit back, look at our processes, look at our procedures, look at some of the problems we had, some of the challenges, and also some of our positives. So we started by organizing workshops and conferences and seminars with our own staff at the state level. Some of our presiding officers, collation officers, civil society groups, the media, and so on and so forth, at the state level. So we have vested all the recommendations from the state level, and then we cascaded it to the national level, where we had a meeting with political parties, security agencies, and all the critical stakeholders. And we have vested all their recommendations, the problems, the challenges that we had with the 2019 elections. Now, but there's a big problem, and the biggest challenge, the biggest problem is the fact that there is lack of trust in our electoral process and in our institutions. People do not seem to trust our institutions. And one of the things I find unacceptable is the fact that some political parties, some politicians, and some candidates that are the heart of undermining the electoral process are the ones who also go out to undermine our democratic institutions and our democratic reinforcing institutions. When you keep on consistently saying that the electoral management body can never conduct a good election, the international community will pick that up. The Nigerian people will pick that up. The voters will pick that up.
And people will resort to self-help.
Yes, and people will either resort to self-help or they will say, oh, you know, there's no need going to go out and vote because my votes will never count. So some sections of the Nigerian elite who are really the perpetrators of electoral violence, who get our people to disengage from the electoral process, go out to undermine our democratic institutions and our electoral institutions, while on the other hand, all attempts to make them change their ways and realize the fact that you can only come to power through the votes of the people, and that you can only come to power through the ballot box has really failed. So I think that part of the challenge we have is that while the electoral management body is preparing to conduct elections, some sections of the political elite are preparing for war. They believe that what
can be done about this? We all complain about this, and it's obvious for us to see. That's why we started this way.
Yes.
What institution of government can do anything about it? Or what can Nigerians do about that kind of situation?
It is, you see, when you engage in impunity and nothing happens, impunity recycles itself. Some sections of the political elite believe that, one, that they can do anything and get away with it. Secondly, that what matters is declaring them as the winners of the election. And thereafter, they can use all sorts of subterfuge to either prevent the judicial process from running its course or to prevent people from getting back their mandate from the law courts. So I think that one of the things we need to do is that we must find ways and means of getting the National Assembly to pay attention to and give life to the Electoral Offences Commission bill that has been pending before them for a pretty long time. I was a member of the Electoral Reform Committee chaired by Honorable Justice Uwais. We made that particular recommendation that we need to break the cycle of impunity in Nigeria by establishing the Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal. then there was this agitation that, oh, too many institutions are being created and so on and so forth. Then I also was a member of the 2014 National Conference. And based on this agitation that there are too many institutions, we said, okay, what we need to do is to have what we called a Political Parties Registration and Regulatory Commission and Electoral Offences Commission, to combine these two institutions so that it will have a bigger portfolio and a bigger mandate. Up to today, that one has not seen the light of day. The Senator Nnamani Committee also made the same recommendation. It has not seen the light of day. So I think that one of the things we need to do is to create an institution that will have responsibility for arrests, for investigation and prosecution of electoral offenders. And that is one. Secondly, we must find ways and means of altering our constitution and also amending our laws to sanction those who violate the spirit of our elections and the democratic spirit by making sure that they don't contest elections maybe for a period of 10 years, for at least for 2 electoral cycles. So we must begin to do things that will make it impossible for people to engage in electoral impunity and get away with it. And I think, for me, that is one of the things that is lacking.
Okay. Yes. I would wish that Mukhtar makes a comment, but we will soon go to Bayelsa. Because this session is supposed to focus more on what is happening on the ground there.
Right.
But before we go there, please tell us what's the situation of things as it concerns APC in Bayelsa. Are they on the ballot or not?
The APC is on the ballot in Bayelsa.
Okay.
Because we did not want anything to go wrong with these elections. We delivered all the non-sensitive materials required for the elections a month ago. And a week ago, we had all the sensitive materials with the central bank. The materials for the conduct of this election was deposited with the central bank, and they were by to registration area center level. So the materials have already left the central bank. So the All Progressives Congress is on the ballot for the elections tomorrow in Bayelsa.
What is INEC's interpretation of the various court positions?
Well, the court orders are still coming, and
so the fact that you have distributed would not countenance any court order that is coming.
Based on the court orders we have seen, and based on the court orders that have been served on us, there is no court order as of today that says that the logo and the logo of the APC should not be on the ballot. Okay. So we are looking at some of the court orders very, very closely, and we are also making sure that we remain within the ambit of the law. So as of today, we have interpreted the court orders, no, not interpreted. We have looked at the court orders that have been served on us, and we have complied with the intendment of those court orders.
Okay, Dr. Mukhtar, before you say bye-bye to us, let us hear from you as an academic. What is it that you put before up-and-coming political experts about Nigeria's recalcitrant nature, so to say, permit me to use that word, in democratic development? You teach these people, but you find yourself teaching the same thing all over. What do you say to political people who are coming, people who are reading political science, they don't even have to read it, who want to practice political science?
You're trying to, I like the fact that Prof is already laughing. Because Prof quite understands the intrigues in the academia much more than I do, and that's the reason why he's laughing. But do not hold him ransom to that, please. The thing is, we in the academia have had a long circle of regurgitation as far as dishing out knowledge to the younger generation is concerned. For me, this is where this is a barrier we need to begin to break. We need to begin to look at things as they are, rather than being too textbook or too neck deep into the textbooks. This is the truth. But again, of course, learning the theories and adopting the things that have existed, life is a continuum. You have to go into your historical circle. As they say, every human is a complex arrangement of his past to be able to figure out a way into the future. yes, we try to, as much as we can, give knowledge to the younger generation in that capacity, but we also try as much as we can to make them see clearly the practices, the kind of practices that goes on around in the practical circle, in the practical realm, in the political arena. We try to introduce some of the students at undergraduate and postgraduate level to some of these things, so that practically they see for themselves what is going on. You expose them to theses and so on and so forth, so that by and large they'll be able to go and grasp one or two things from the field and try to comprehend.
Do some of these students
things.
justify some of these things that are happening?
That's where I was going to go to. You know, sometimes you find yourself in a very precarious situation. You find yourself in a boxed by students, and they're trying to put it to you. As a teacher of political science, I'm sure Prof has had that experience countless times. What exactly do you think can be done to salvage the situation? Is it the same norm that we see out there? What is a norm that we're going to inherit? Now, this is a problem, because the legacy mentality plays out very significantly in all human condition, and that's exactly what we're scared of. This is what we're afraid of, that we see that the future seems to be sort of bleak. You know, we're not very hopeful, we're not very optimistic of some of the things we see happening around, and that's the reason why we consistently advocate that there should be a paradigm shift in how political elites, political actors conduct themselves within the political arena, because by and large you're passing a very significant message to the younger generation, and this is a narration that they're going, or a narrative rather, that they're going to hold on to. And you see, the thing about ideas is ideas are more contagious than viruses. They are more contagious than intestinal worms. The moment you impact or implant an idea in an individual, it might take another generation to take it out. You know, some of these damages might be irreparable. And what we have done is, like Prof mentioned earlier, we are estranging or alienating the people, consciously or subconsciously, from the political institutions, from the political system, from the political processes. That's exactly what is playing out. The moment people begin to hear about, in the last couple of hours, we've heard about gunshots in Kogi and in Bayelsa. Elections have not even started yet. 3 people were killed in one of the local governments in Kogi State just a couple of days ago. Elections are not here yet. So you wonder what then happens on the day of the election, and what message are you passing to the theoretical realm, we in the academia? How are we supposed to translate this thing to the younger generation and tell them that you're not going to inherit a Nigeria filled with bloodshed in the name of electoral processes and elections? So basically, these are some of the challenges that we are confronted with.
Thank you very much. I think you should find time to come back to this studio. Go quickly and catch your flight.
I will try.
Catch your flight, and then we will find time to have you again. But it's like Mr. Festus Okoye is a lawyer of decades of standing. Of course. And suppose that's what makes you think that he's a prof of the university. You know? Okay.
He's a professor of election.
But now, that's the sort of professor of election is what I was referring to. Before he had this government work, he was the one we were always calling to come and analyze what was happening.
Of course.
So he combines everything. And now on the field in Bayelsa, Ameze is ready to take us around what is happening, and we're going to join her now and join Bayelsa now.
Thank you very much, Femi Okewo. It's so refreshing to see you back after a while. We welcome to Bayelsa Decide Studio, live in the heart of INEC headquarters in Yenagoa, the capital city of Bayelsa State, the glory land. We are starting on a very positive note. The body language of Bayelsans and all stakeholders is positive. There is a collective resolve, an indication that all is going to go well in less than 16 hours when they will go to the polls. And the reason for this standpoint is that all the necessary arrangements have been put in place. The concerted efforts have been put in place by all the stakeholders. And that is why we are on this standpoint that come tomorrow, 16th of November 2019, we will have a credible, free and fair election here in Bayelsa State. To lay credence to this fact, are some gentlemen in the studio with me here. I will start from my far left, and that is talking about the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform. He is no other than Nzenwa Wagu. It's good to have you, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it.
And also with us in the studio is Negi James. He's a social commentator and analyst, and he's the South-South Coordinator, Transition Monitoring Group, TMG. It's good to have you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. Before we go into discussions of various issues that will be thrown up this afternoon, we would like to let you know the facts and figures in terms of demographics of Bayelsa State governorship election. 45 political parties are in this game. 42 are males, 3 are females. There is no disabled, no candidate with special needs. That's what I mean. The registered voters figure is put at 923,182. And of course, we have collected PVCs put at the figure of 889,308. Uncollected PVCs, 33,874. And of course, the gender distribution of registered voters, we have 498, 790, and of course, 424 and 392 for the females. Before we give you details of the discussion regarding the preparations for this election, we want to get to the MCRO and give you the preparations for this Bayelsa governorship election.
The delivery of sensitive materials is the final phase of the preparation by INEC for the conduct of the governorship election in Bayelsa State. Officials of INEC, observers, party agents, security, as well as the media were at the Central Bank of Nigeria to witness the delivery of the sensitive materials. The REC, INEC, Bayelsa State, Pastor Monday Udotom said the commission is ready to conduct the election as the sensitive materials are available for delivery.
We have gumbos to escort these materials to the RAF center. Control and nothing untoward will happen in this election. We have enough security on ground to protect every voter. So people of Bayelsa State, go out and start your franchise.
The media were not allowed to take visuals of the sensitive materials except from loaded vehicles for onward delivery to the registration area centers. Some party agents and observers raised concerns about the non-availability of result sheets in Ward 15, Southern Ijo, and the excursion of the materials to avoid being hijacked.
By the time of election or later today, we hear that materials are not there. It is a responsibility. That is, we expect that having raised this kind of concern, they should have called all the party agents. We put heads together and see how they work out safer routes for all of us. But INEC is reluctant to do that.
Water transport is a challenge. Oftentimes you go to the waterfront, when it's time to load these materials in a boat, INEC will tell you they made arrangements for boat, but the boats are not ready. So you wait at the waterfront till about 5, 6, and you're moving 3-4 hours to your location. So that's the challenge.
We are only encouraged to go and escort material to pull in, but not to counter hoodlums or to counter. That has been the current trend now. So we are appealing to police people to make sure that they protect all material and will not allow any form of hijacking of material. And I think it will be so.
Thanks that we had a hiccup on Ward 15. Ward 15 result sheet wasn't available, but they brought the replacement sheets. What is keeping us here now is 9, 10, 11 voters registered, then we are good to go.
As 889,308 persons are expected to exercise the franchise tomorrow. From Central Bank of Nigeria here in Yenogwa, the Bayelsa State capital, Simenupri, on here, NTA News.
Thank you very much for that incisive report on the distribution of sensitive materials right from the symbol of the CBN. I'd like to ask the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform. Some issues were thrown up which have to do with lack or adequate preparation for the distribution of these materials in terms of logistics. Why is it that it's becoming a recurring decimal?
Well, this is the day to now walk the talk.
Yes.
We've seen INEC talk about how they have dotted the T's, how they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. But we're at that point now where we're going to have to test all of these. And for every logistics infraction, the consequence of that is that the punctuality index for tomorrow will be affected. So I'm particularly interested in what happens, knowing that Bayelsa didn't happen on us. Bayelsa, we didn't just come to realize that there's a Bayelsa. We always knew that there was going to be a Bayelsa. We knew that the topography of Bayelsa was challenging. We knew that we conducted this election sometime also around 2015, thereabout. We had elections here in 2019. So the expectation is that we must not hoist any regime of excuses. And I think everyone who has responsibility to ensure that we have credible, free, fair, credible, acceptable elections should do what is necessary to do from now on. And I'm already concerned, and we are concerned that distribution of materials. You heard the INEC National Commissioner in charge of publicity telling us that all of these have been deposited in the central bank. So I don't see the reason why we should now get to this fire brigade mode that we are being pushed into. And I think that what is important now is that the security agents, INEC must ensure that these materials get to where they should get to, so that we can have early opening of polls tomorrow.
Okay. Well, Maggie James, can we speak to the security challenges that we seem to be having? Because obviously one of the respondents said that it is not their business to ensure the security of these materials getting to the hinterland or the riverine communities. So what exactly should be done to improve the status quo?
I don't really understand what he means exactly, but as far as I'm concerned, in this deltaic and riverine area of the topography we have and the nature of our situation, there is no way we will not demand for security. Anybody that is saying so, that means he has already planned unconventional way of hijacking material. In fact, ordinarily, we don't even need military people. We don't need it. But because everybody believe that I am the person that must hijack, I must be there. So if anybody is complaining that security should not be part of, in fact, one of the finest, I will use the word finest, and the best improvement I have seen is this election. Before now, by now we will even be talking about how things will leave this state capital. But from Monday,
so what you're saying in effect is that we can give it
definitely a plus to INEC. Okay. As far as materials, the sensitive materials cannot get to our place. Madam, with due respect to security people, I think if there is no way we will avoid security in riverine areas of Bayelsa, because I was there in the CBN too. The security is listening to what is happening. You cannot convey these things up front before more days to the election. If you do that, I also complained in the stakeholders meeting that there should be adequate security for offices, LGA offices and other offices of INEC. Anything can happen. But what we are saying is that the truth of the matter is that the political gladiators, the political players and their supporters are the real problem of Nigerian security. Okay.
From what you have said, you have given a plus to INEC and security operators.
Definitely.
Let's get
But we've not finished the election. Yeah. For now, pre-election activities. During election, sometimes these security personnel are funny. That is where we've not discussed, because they might go on intimidation. They may go beyond the rule of engagement and beyond their code of conduct. And these are the areas that we human rights people and civil society will never support them. Okay. So if they follow up the trend of what is going on by being neutral, definitely escorting this material is very necessary.
Okay, let's hope that that will be done and done very well and shortly too. Let's look at the movement of people to the different communities to prepare to exercise their franchise.
The resilience of Bayelsans to participate in the 2019 governorship election can be likened to that of fishermen that are paddling against the tide. They keep paddling by the seconds. They keep struggling to go up to their destination, but the tide is against them, and so their movement is limited. Bayelsans see the difficult riverine terrain that they have to creak their way through as another tide against which they must paddle to ensure that they participate in the elections. This market boat can contain about 300 passengers, but it's not a comfortable boat for them. The boat is smoky, the seats are wooden, and they have to travel for about 5-6 hours to Akasa and Sangana.
There's still no speedboat available, so I have to go through this market boat, and you can see I'm going through some kind of stress and all this smoke entering my nose and my body. But I have no choice. I have to be there to do my duty for my country and for my state, also Bayelsa State.
In spite of these discomforts, they are determined to participate, so they are ready to go through every hurdle to make sure that their votes count in determining who becomes the next governor of Bayelsa State.
See, boats, speedboat not rich people where they go here plenty well. We not care to know wetin dey happen. We want go vote for the right party. Now I make they enter anyhow then do. Say now tomorrow morning we go reach. We want us go vote for the person. Make Bayelsa State change for us.
This particular fiber speedboat is going to Paramaburi. From this jetty, passengers also go as far as Efolobubo, all in southern Ijo. It is another means of transportation that most of the voters are adopting to go back to their various communities to participate in the 2019 Bayelsa State governorship elections. Onenkiye Fine Face, NTA News.
Gentlemen, there seems to be a huge expression of patriotism on the part of the electorate from what we have seen in that report put together by Onenkiye Fine Face. What does it tell you about an average electorate, a Nigerian?
Well, I think it's clear to everyone that the narrative of violence, the narrative of crisis that you see and hear in the media does not resonate with the ordinary Bayelsa. It's a narrative of the politicians. Yeah. The politicians put out that narrative. You see, from all over the country, people are calling, oh, you are in Bayelsa, are you safe? And you are like, is this the Bayelsa that people are talking about? The people are interested. They want to vote. There are just a few people who from time to time want to, defecate in the public well. And it's the responsibility of these ordinary Bayelsans who are interested in reshaping the narrative of their states to disappoint these politicians.
This is one of the sad effects of the social media.
Well, it's not just social media. It's also
you won't get this from the main media.
You see, let's get this clearly.
Yes.
You see, if you check all the risk assessments for this election, Bayelsa is in the red. Bayelsa red, and if you talk up, they say, don't go to Nembe, don't go to this. I've moved around Kolokuma, the Kayama, all of those places, and the people are excited. They are looking forward to casting their vote. So I'm asking people, where the heck are we getting what we are putting out to people? In the run-up to the elections, yes, there were early warning issues around stockpiling of arms. There were early warning issues around, voter inducement and all of those issues. But the psyche of the Bayelsa that I'm feeling as we went out today is one that wants to disappoint Nigerians, disappoint Nigerians, because the feeling of apocalypse, the whole idea of Armageddon the Nigerians will be disappointed. They will not see it.
So how can they be compensated? In the sense that, don't you think that their lives and property need to be adequately protected?
For me, Bayelsans are highly protected. It is the political merchants and conflict entrepreneurs who are benefiting from these political gladiators, are even creating tension, because as far as I'm concerned, he rightly puts it, if you are in Bayelsa, you will not even feel that something is happening. But because they are professional, those who have called themselves professional politicians, and they have created it as an employment, a bureau of employment, so that they continue to create ban funds and create, in fact, some of the security people, there are some places you will go, police are playing draft, no job to do. And if they are playing draft, that means there is there is completely peace. So what people are trying to do is to inform the international community so that they will create where even security will have more money. The more you create those issues, you see civil societies are all trooping out. Let's go and see. Let's see what is happening. But I'm sure he is disappointed from what people are talking about. So the anxiety, for 8 years, we have not thumbprint a governor. Now, even those who were even 16, 15 years are now 18 years. Everybody wants to vote. People are so excited, especially the younger generation, want to vote. And that is why you see everybody moving out. Look at the state capital. It's almost like Xmas Eve.
There's pervading peace.
Yes. And I bet you, that is why in the stakeholders forum, I said declare the entire Bayelsa state as a flashpoint. They are anywhere. Just see it, say generally flashpoint. But at the end, you will be disappointed. And to also inform you, it's based on this, an NGO I found, Nengi James Foundation, the first edition, Okolokumo Pokuma won the most peaceful election, LG. Now we are also trying to at least reduce and minimize
tension and violence. All right.
So these are part of the things we are doing.
The security arrangements on ground to ensure that we have a peaceful election tomorrow.
Says the police is ready to combat crime and reduce it, hence the deployment of more personnel to areas identified as flashpoints. He also assured the citizenry of a peaceful conduct of the election.
You had a crowd here before, now no crowd, which means every personnel has been deployed to his location, and we are set for the election. Let them embrace peace. Let them cooperate with us. Let them go about their business, cast their vote, go back to their respective homes.
Despite the recent violence, Bayelsans are still in high spirits to exercise their franchise. Everything is now set for the Bayelsa State Police Command to take charge of November 16 governorship election in Bayelsa State. From Yenagoa, I am Gabriel Amunike, NTA News.
Yes, that is the situation on ground here. Everything is set for peaceful, credible, and fair elections. Wow, can we have your final thoughts?
My sense is that we citizens will need to oversight these elections, and when I say oversight the elections, it is the citizens are the center of elections. If they want peaceful election, they will have it. There are very few people who will want to change that narrative. They can confront them, they can hold them down, and the only way that is possible is to make sure that you come out. If you don't come out to vote, which is what the politicians are actually interested in, the whole narrative about violence is to make sure that you are scared. But I'm excited. You go to the garages, you go to everywhere.
What exactly do they hope to achieve?
No, if you don't come out, then they manipulate the process. So if you come out, there is no opportunity for manipulation. So Bayelsans have opportunity tomorrow to come out en masse and vote the person of their choice and avoid vote buying and vote trading.
For me, I observe the harsh condition of police officers. So I'm calling on the Inspector General of Police that the policemen who were sleeping, no feeding, no allowance, I think is not encouraging. And that can transform to something else. Politicians can layer them for certain things. So next time that police area should be improved. But for me, election is not war. Yeah. We need peace in Bayelsa State, and we will achieve peace.
Thank you very much, Negi James. We are glad to have had you as our guest in Bayelsa Decide Studios. It's also heartwarming to let you know that despite a series of litigation judgments, Bayelsans are ready to go to the polls, and successfully so too. I'd like to also remind you that there will be a supplementary election in Brass 1 into the state constituency of Brass 1 tomorrow, and that will be done in some local government, holding in 16 local governments, 6 polling units, I beg your pardon. Yes, that'll be all from Bayelsa Decide Studio. I'll hand you over to my colleague in Lokoja, Fisayo Ogunfuyi. Thank you for joining us. Good evening.
Kogers from across Nigeria are thronging Lokoja and all environs to come and cast their votes and determine the future of their state. Of course, it has been hectic. Of course, it's a nodal city, it's a nodal state, bordering about 9 different states. So, of course, it's a crucial junction in the nation, of course, a crucial junction in terms of travels. Let me quickly welcome Dr. John Alabi, Professor of Strategy and Entrepreneurship on program Kogi Decides. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Faye, and good evening.
All right, before we will dissect the dynamics of the election out here in Kogi, let's first start with security. And we understand that security operatives are in tip-top shape to make sure that everything is in order as far as tomorrow's election is concerned. Our correspondent Charles Alpha has this background report on security and elections.
Election security management is key consideration for smooth transition of power in strengthening democracy and building strong and effective institutions for governance. As Kogi State prepares for the governorship and senatorial rerun elections, the need to ensure the exercise is free of violence is a major concern of stakeholders, more so that the state borders with 9 states. It is to respond to these challenges, the Inspector General of Police, Adamu Mohammed, is expected to deploy over 35,000 personnel. They include Special Forces, CTU, Air Wing, a Deputy Inspector General of Police, along with other top officers to coordinate personnel in strategic places for a hitch-free elections. In addition, 8 personnel will mount each polling booth, while restriction of movement will be thoroughly minimized.
Police are not alone in this in the security of this coming election. We are going to be assisted by members of the other security agencies, the civil defense, the prisons, all the other security agencies. And the military too will be giving us an outer cover. So adequate security have been put in place for all the electorate, that's all the citizens to go out to exercise their franchise without any fear of any molestation.
For the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, 10,000 personnel from neighboring states would be involved, in addition to the 3,000 at the disposal of the state command to complement the Nigerian police force.
As I talk with you now, there's an ID card process that is going on, that this ID card will not be issued until on the eve of the election to all our officers, all over that come in. So that means if you're not carrying our ID card, our service ID card, we'll wonder where you got your own uniform of NSCDC from.
On the part of government, series series of sensitization meetings have been held with stakeholders, while logistics have been provided for operatives in order to ensure both the governorship and senatorial elections is devoid of rancor.
The state government will not dictate to security agencies. On our own part, we'll just ensure that security is put in place. The federal government will deploy all their security agencies. Will work along with them, just as we have led you in the state. Strategy or the tactical way or they are going to carry it out is not our business. For them, they are to secure the state and they are doing it.
With the measures in place, analysts believe that the successes recorded during the campaigns should translate into a peaceful election that will be the pride of all Kogi people. However, youth have been advised to desist from any acts that would impede the outcome of the exercise. In Lokoja, Francis Udojo, NT News.
For that report, of course, talking about the mood generally. First, before we go to the issue of security, what's the mood like? Having gone around to town and witnessed elections in the past in the state, what's the mood like in Kogi State?
Well, thank you very much. Like you rightly mentioned in the preview, it's a crossroad and a determining destiny for this state. I want to say this, that it's important to underscore the fact that each time we have a gubernatorial election in the states, because of the dynamics we have as regards where the gubernatorial aspirant comes from, it's always a tense moment. I want to say this, that the bedrock should be good governance. But I must say the general mood in the city and particularly in the state is that of apprehension. Who takes over come January 27? Of course, there's a sitting party. There's another party that was unseated in 2015. So all of them are gladiators. Of course, we also have other entrants who are making inroads into various places. So the general mood is that this election is a decider. This election will determine where we go from here, because development is about people. And all the political parties, I must say, they have done the needful by way of campaigning and sensitizing. But I'm particularly happy because the incident of hate speeches have never really surfaced. But all we've seen as we talk along is the issue of one or two skirmishes. But on the whole, people are apprehensive. Today, I traveled from the eastern flank, traveled this morning to the eastern flank and back even to Lokoja. In the vehicles, in the various shops, like today, tomorrow is the day we must go out. And I can see people moving out. This morning when I walk out, my wife asked me, where are the residents of Lokoja? The whole place seems deserted. People are moving on. For most of the offices, skeletal services, schools have been shut down. Even in the university, for instance, the school has been closed for 2 weeks so that students can go home and go. So there's this general mood that, this is a decider. 16th, tomorrow we decide where we go. But for us, who are past monitoring election, there must be a winner and a loser. Whoever wins, magnanimous, and be friendly. So that's the mood.
For those who understand riverine language, there's the hermit crab and the sea anemone. This is a symbiotic relationship in the rivers and the seas. The umpire and security agencies are working together to make sure that they deliver these elections. Like Alpha's report earlier, the security architecture has been beefed up to make sure that there are no skirmishes, as you rightly observed. Are you confident of some of the assurances you've gotten from security agencies and of course the umpire
yes,
in terms of the logistics as well as the security apparatus?
Thank you very much. The critical issue at election to me is the issue of deployment. Security itself is not about the number of personnel you have, but it has to do with the number, the deployment, the timeliness, and the proactiveness of those agencies concerned. Over the last month or so, there have been cases of one or two skirmishes. It had to do with perhaps morally or touched down on a party's structure or what have you. But on the whole, INEC has done a lot of sensitization to let people know that look, election is not a war, it is a contest. On the part of security agencies, yes, there is a complement of the police. We're talking about 35,000 deployment. The NCD, the civil defense, the road safety, they all be deployed. My take is they have done the needful, but security is everybody's business. Again, 35,000 3.1 million people in the state, 21 local government, some areas are not accessible by river. Important is that we must all give the security agency information. But on the whole, what has been done so far is that we're identified. But to me, a crime ban also is very, very important, identifying the flash forest. I've witnessed election 2004 to date. I can tell you there are 3 particular areas that whatever you do, there are always skirmishes. I begin to wonder why. So security agency will be proactive, and it's spread across the 3 central districts, but primarily in 2 areas particularly. So it's important for us to know that we should be proactive, such that where that incidents like that is nipped in the bud. But so far, so good. But for citizens, I think we should also lend information, give information, through security agency on time. Because I must tell you, Kogi is a very diverse. People say 21 local government. Yes. If you move from here and you are going to East Yaba West, you might spend 4.5 hours because of terrain. You can't get there. If you are going to Omala, for instance, you need about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. Then if you are going to Riverine areas, like Ibaji, because the rivers are here. So many areas that are free. Of course, even in local government, where we sit here, the Koja sit, the municipal local government, Budo, access. So these are critical areas. So we must deploy and deploy timely. So the number is critical, information is critical, timely deployment of those, security forces is also important, and data sharing, information gathering, so such that where there are any case of insecurity breaches, it can be nipped at the bud. But we are free also. I'm a very spiritual person. I know God will give us a peaceful election.
Yes, I share that optimism with you. And let's for a traveler or those who pass through your state, we see hills, we see valleys, we see rivers, we see a topography that shows rich and resources beneath the surface, ore and all that, mineral resources and all that. But our reporter, Yakubu Onotu, just went around Lokoja, perhaps trying to introduce to us the cliffs, the hills, the valleys, and areas where voters may go to or may not go to when we see election day. Let's take that report from Onotu, and then we'll come back and discuss some more.
Of ours to the much anticipated November 16th Kogi State Governorship election, and expectations are high with much anticipation that the system is prepared to deliver the goods. This is the popular Natako Junction in Lokoja, the state capital. Natako is a transit route and melting point for national traffic as Nigerians crisscross from the north to the southeast on my right and west on the left. But come this Saturday, Natako will be a total lockdown as the people go to the polls. The election will be another date with the Nigerian Kando spirit, which the people will be expressing in the love that binds them together.
I saw it on news yesterday that the materials for the elections arrived yesterday, and they've started distributing it, and by the grace of God, all the representatives of the local governments are present to convey them. I really see the preparedness in them yesterday, and there's no cause for alarm.
I'm begging the people of Kogi State to come out massively to vote for their choice. We didn't need any problem, and we didn't need any quarrel. We want free and fair election in Kogi State.
Historical landmarks such as this and other spots across the state will this Saturday be beehive of activities as residents seek to exercise their franchise to elect a governor. The exercise is going to be about expression of freedom of choice of leadership, and these ones here know better.
The fear is that maybe because of the gun shooting or all those embarrassments, that's what people are fearing. But I believe God will take control.
Election can go and you live with your brother, you understand? So we don't like to fight, you understand? We need the security to help us, to support.
Whichever way it turns out, whether to consolidate on the existing mandate or institute a new dispensation, one thing is certain. Come January 27, 2020, this office behind me will host a new administration. In Lokoja, Iliyasu Onotu Yakubu, NTA News.
some of the reactions we got there, everybody's preaching for peace. It seems co-guys just want this process to go as seamlessly as possible so that they can go on with their lives.
It's essential. That's just it. We want peaceful election, credible election, and one election that will produce just that leader that will lead us to the next 4 years. One thing is crystal clear. If you have a level playing field and any party, any candidate wins, of course, co-guys, we are not that categories, and we are not really asked to cause foment trouble. But the process we've seen is credible, and of course, we congratulate so that we have been living together for centuries, years and years, from Kaba province, and I must tell you that we're living peacefully. If you go through local you see cosmopolitan nature. We talk about our resources, talk about we are friendly people, we are hospitable people, we intermarry, and all we want is development. But for a party, for democracy's sake, definitely we have to go along different party lines. And that's why language, religion, culture is not a barrier. You see in a family, Christians and Muslims, right? You see a grandma marrying the Okuman marrying the Ghana. And that's the beauty of it. But for democracy, it's about choice, it's about number. So what we say is go out there, exercise civic duty, vote for the choice. Whoever emerges the winner, of course, he has the day. But like I keep saying, every winner should have an open door policy. And if you are losing the election, be magnanimous in defeat, because next time it may be your turn. And that's it.
Finally, before I let you go, historically, this was the seat of government at the time. And we've seen a lot of, retired civil servants and opinion leaders, a lot of people who have worked in government. How have those people come out to perhaps, shape an opinion to make sure that people look at elections as just part of the process rather than a do or die affair?
Thank you very much. You see, in this case, we're blessed. Blessed, even in the northern region, we have produced eminent, indigenes of the state that have made waves in the national level. Right? Talk about a lot of people from the eastern flank, from the western flank, the central flank. These are who built the state. And if you look at their antecedents, they have been preaching peace. If you go through all they say is, look, this is an election. This election should not be based on ethnicity or tribal sentiment. This election should be based on who can deliver. And it's important for us to know that our leaders are such people that have never come out to preach war. No. I've not seen a leader that said, look, you must do this. No. But one thing that our youth must be sensitized to know that we're building the future for ourselves. Kogi is a cosmopolitan state. Kogi is a melting point. Kogi should be the rallying point. If the only confluence state I don't know of anyone in the whole wide world, and that's it. So confluence of resources, confluence of ideas, confluence of peaceful coexistence, and God will give us a peaceful election.
All right, we've been speaking with Dr. John Alabi, Professor of Strategy and Entrepreneurship here in Kogi State. He has been, observing elections, he says, from about 2004 in the state, and his forecast is of peace and tranquility. Of course, just like Lokoja itself, that is the capital of the state, it has two options. There's the uphill to Mount Party, or the steady flowing stream of the Niger. Where they would go to will be determined perhaps by logistics, by dynamics, by speech from the podium, and by promises. We'll get to see all that in the coming days to see exactly what would happen. Let's go back to Abuja, where, of course, the studio is also there, watching things from Abuja, a bit from afar, but of course we are right here with our finger in all the political pies to make sure that we bring it home to let you know what is happening. And it's a political animal. Even when you don't stay at home and you don't go out, you're saying something. When you go out, you're saying something. We expect co-guys to go out and cast their votes, especially in a peaceful manner tomorrow. It's back to Abuja.
Certainly be talking to you more about the things that are happening on the ground. And there is a coincidence about the two states that were having their governorship election. Kogi is not a direct riverine area, but it has a lot of water. Just Bayelsa is about 70%, I'm told, water. And so later in the program, we shall be talking with Mr. Festus Okoye about the trick INEC is deploying to make sure that water does not frustrate their effort. For now, let's introduce someone who has just joined us, and he is Ismail Momo Zakari, also a lecturer at the Bayes University. Welcome, Ismail.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Nigerians.
Thank you. Let's have your thoughts immediately now about this election, Kogi governorship election and Bayelsa. What are your thoughts? What have you been sharing with people outside the studio?
Well, the two states that are going into election tomorrow, we expect that, like the critical stakeholders, they have done their best, like we have had. We have had all that INEC has did so far, and even the NGOs that are on ground, people has contributed their own quota in educating the two states, especially the citizenry. INEC has convened stakeholder meetings, which is expected of them, and it is expected that as we are going into this election, we expect peace, we expect progress, and we expect that both the electoral umpires, the security agencies, and also the citizen should behave, and everybody should play according to the rules. And I'm sure that it's only when all the critical stakeholders have done their own part that we're going to have hitch-free election, and it is our hope. And even though what we have been hearing or what we are seeing on ground, we still expect, Nigeria is a country of full hope.
We respect what you have been hearing, because it means that what you have been hearing is what all of us have been hearing. But we went to Bayelsa, and Ezinwa and James, and they were unanimous on the fact that there is relative peace on the ground. Bearing a twist in events, I think Nigerians are hoping that we're going to have a peaceful election, particularly as stated by some of our analysts in Bayelsa. Now let's begin to look at these issues one after the other. We are still at the pre-election stage, and every election stage is important: the pre, the election itself, and the post. But Mr. Festus Okoye, from what we hear about your deployment of facilities, materials in Bayelsa, everybody seems to have given kudos to you. But there's something a little different in Kogi. Kogi, the part where it's not riverine, they say it's been overrun by flood. Did you calculate into that when deploying? Because people are complaining that there are some villages that have been overtaken by water.
Well, we did our calculations. We did our surveys in relation to these two states. For Bayelsa, for instance, we decided that it was better for us to deploy directly to the registration area centers, direct from Yenogua, rather than deploying to the 8 local governments before deploying to the registration area centers. So you can see that from the central bank, we batched the materials to the registration area centers rather than to the local governments. This is on account of the peculiarities of Bayelsa. In some of the local governments, you have to get to the local governments and then begin to come back to the registration areas. And we didn't want that type of complicated route. So we decided that it was better for us to stage directly from Yenogua to the registration area centers. And we also made sure that we got into some form of partnership, into some level of synergy with the Nigerian Navy and with the Nigerian Air Force. So the Nigerian Navy promised that they were going to provide at least 30 gunboats to protect the INEC materials and INEC personnel that will be on the high seas on conveying these materials. And the Operation Safe Haven also promised at least additional 40 gunboats to protect our men, our personnel and our materials. And then there's also going to be air surveillance around the high seas to make sure that nothing untoward happens. And then the Navy has also said that they're going to also deploy bigger ships to protect the high seas in relation to this. Now, in relation to Kogi State, you know, the rains were heavy and the challenges with some of our neighbors that opened their dams and some parts of Kogi were flooded. We also took that into consideration. The electoral officers in each of those local governments, especially in Ibaji local government, were asked to survey the place, and they had stakeholder meetings. In areas where that are flooded, they had an agreement with the stakeholders to move to higher levels. So we have some of these things under control, and we made special arrangements. We also with the Navy in relation to some of the places that we have to get to by boats. So I think we have some of these things under control, and we are very, very hopeful and confident that with the type of measures we have on ground and with the type of training we have given to our presiding officers and assistant presiding officers, that we are going to have a good election.
Mr. Ojo, it's all these things that are happening now, the deployment, everything, points to the need for us to go electronic faster than we are doing. Why are we still at this level, in your opinion?
Well, we can but hurry slowly because what you do not understand about election and electoral environment is that everything is not under the control of INEC. When I say that, I'm saying that with every sense of responsibility. The infrastructure upon which INEC is conducting election is not all within its own control. What is the internet penetration level of Nigeria today? It's about 65%. Except you want to add those areas where it is epileptic, where you have to climb the tree to receive, or to go on a mountain to be able to make calls, or to be, because you see, it's very easy for us to stay in Abuja and say, oh, this is how every part of Nigeria is. You go to some places in Taraba. In fact, you will be the telephone in Cameroon will be sharper and more
interfering with your calls.
With your calls. All these border communities, if you try to make a call in some local government in Katsina, in Sokoto, you will be hearing interference from Niger and Mali and Chad, depending on your closeness to the border. So we need to do proper mapping, so that when we need to amend the electoral laws to say INEC cannot go electronic voting.
In areas where it can.
Maybe that clause will have to be put, that in areas where it is possible for the commission to so do. And then we now have to mix it with manual voting. Even in America, when I went there in 2010 to observe elections, so there are states that are still using both manual and touchscreen, which is electronic, side by side. And that may be where we start.
California did. That's why they wanted to do manual counting to resolve.
So we need that infrastructure. We need to overcome that infrastructure. Does it not even bother us that in 21st century, INEC will have to provide generators to charge batteries of their smart card reader? Because you can't depend on the national grid or the public electricity supply. In many of those rack centers, INEC will have to go and send contractors to go and wire the place, so that the UCOM members who are deployed there can have some sense of humanity, some sense of comfort.
Possibly INEC will have to provide mobile toilet because many of these rack centers do not have toilet facilities. Now you have deployed to rack, you have open rack or super rack about 3-4 days ago. People are there. If you don't make that places habitable and comfortable, they may break down before election day when their task is even most needed. So what we are saying is that we need to hurry slowly and make sure that we build our infrastructure, national infrastructure, provide adequate power supply, adequate internet supply, so that, and then make the legal provisions that INEC should do this. If you read my column 2 weeks ago, last week actually, I actually took the presidency up on the need for urgent electoral reform. Yes. And I was advising that we need to have this electoral reform concluded between now and December 2020. Yes. Why did I say so? In the event that you want to do electronic voting, you need to start with a pilot. Yes. You can't just deploy directly in 2023 without first test running with by-elections, small by-elections, and see how does it work. If you do, and that is the mistake INEC tried to make, which nearly got its ass burnt in 2015. When INEC deployed smart card reader in 2015, there was no pilot of it anywhere. In fact, but for the postponement of election for 6 weeks, they would not have done any field test if the election has been held on February 14, 2015, as was earlier planned. But the moment that election was postponed for 6 weeks, INEC was able to do a sample field testing of the smart card reader. And that was when the commission now realized that there could be fingerprint authentication failure. Yes. Otherwise, they would not have made provision for incident forms in 2015. And you can see 4 years down the line, we are still grasping with perfecting the use of smart card reader. So if you want to do electronic voting or electronic transmission of results in 2023, you need to start with a pilot. But before the commission can do a pilot, it has to have the law amended to give it the backing, the legal teeth to deploy it. So let me cite the example again of our national infrastructure that is impeding the electoral process. Do you know that many schools that are being used for the conduct of election, many persons with disability cannot easily access those places? And does it lie within the ambience and power of INEC to start building ramps for public schools that are not owned by it? And look at the enormity of the resources that it will need if you want to do full integration of persons with disability into the electoral process by providing ramps, so there are things that are within the control of INEC, there are those that are not within the control of the commission. And that's why we say, as we develop as a country, as we overcome our infrastructural challenge, why should it take 4 hours to get to any part of Kogi State? It's because of the bad roads. If the roads are good, many of the places that you need 4 hours to get to, you can get there in 2 or 3 hours and cut down on the travel time. But because the roads are bad, it is the same road that INEC will apply to deploy its personnel and materials. And that is increasing the cost of elections because the road transport workers they have to go and negotiate with will factor in wear and tear on their vehicles. So if you are deploying them to a far out to reach place, they will charge you more. It's just like you want to go and bring in farm produce from your farm and there is no motorable road to your farm. The transporter that will go and bring those goods to the market will charge you much more higher than if you were to deploy him to go and fetch material or bring your farm produce from areas that are easily accessible either by land, water or by air.
Ismail, let's have your thoughts. What should we do for our state of development? We continue this way, or what can we do for what we have on our hands now to improve our electoral system?
Well, it's well said by my colleague here. I think the nation is still on the path of democratic entrenchment. It is a gradual process. I'm sure that at least we have had 20 years of uninterrupted democracy now, and we are getting our parts right, so to say. It is general challenge, especially in Nigeria, that we have this infrastructure, deficit. It is only when we are able to put them one after the other that we can talk of such development. Indeed, it is a long process. It takes the leadership, the focused leadership, to be able to doing it one after the other. Like I said, we cannot just jump into electronic voting now. There are things that needed to be done. By the time we're doing it one after the other, I think someday we will get it right.
We had the narrative from Bayelsa, and we saw how Herculean it can be traveling on water for 5 hours.
Indeed.
So it's a give and take situation. Your equipment, your materials are at risk. It's INEC waiting for the amendment before it does something that Jide and I exchange here, partial deployment of electronic voting and all that.
Let me just say this. The report from Bayelsa, the people living and moving to southern Niger to go and vote tomorrow,
yes,
they are going to pay big money in order to get to their destination. They are going to endure huge risk in order to get to their destination. But you can see the level of their enthusiasm, because they believe that they want to go and exercise their democratic mandate and their democratic choice. Now, when these people get to their destination and then they file out the following day, being tomorrow, to go and vote, and somebody deploys violence, somebody deploys intimidation, somebody creates an atmosphere of fear. The implication is that these people that have made this huge sacrifice to go and vote will begin to gradually disengage from the electoral process, because they have made this sacrifice and somebody is saying your votes will never count. It's a huge problem. But coming to your question, the Independent National Electoral Commission is not waiting for an amendment to the law before engaging in creative application of new innovative strategies. The critical challenge is the trust deficit in our electoral process. The second critical challenge is that a section of the political elite has refused to develop what I call the democratic spirit. Because of this trust deficit in our electoral process, whatever new innovation you introduce, a section of the political elite wants to undermine it. The smart card reader was introduced by the Independent National Electoral Commission as a confirmatory and authentication process. You go to the polling unit, you use the smart card reader to make a determination of whether the permanent voter's card that somebody has come to the polling unit with belongs to the Independent National Electoral Commission or is closed. You also want to know whether the person who has come to the polling unit with the smart card reader is the true owner or the true registered voter whose biometrics has been captured. That's the function of the smart card reader. But you see, a section of the political elite tried to find a way to undermine the usage of the smart card reader. They either intimidate the presiding officers and ask them to throw the smart card reader away in order for them to do manual accreditation. Or in some instances, they deployed violence to make sure that the smart card reader is never deployed, is never used. So it's based on trust and based on the refusal of the political elite to make sure that the smart card reader is used in our election.
Very valid issue you have raised. But what can we do? Are we helpless?
No,
in this trust deficit, are we helpless? Is it a helpless? Are we going to keep waiting till Nigerians begin to say, okay, and the political elites actually begin to say, oh, everything is well?
No, we are not waiting for them. Despite the challenges we have, the Independent National Electoral Commission has continued this pilot project to make sure that at a certain stage we have a duality of electronic voting and manual voting, so that we can complement both of them. Because as Jide pointed out, there are so many of our communities that are not covered by any of the major networks, and these people are also entitled to vote. These people are entitled to be represented, and these people are also entitled to be integrated into the electoral process. So we are looking at a duality, but we must also take into consideration the whole issue about cybersecurity. We need to protect our national assets and national infrastructure, and also upgrade our national assets to support electronic voting and so on and so forth. But it is not introducing electronic voting that is the issue. You can introduce the electronic voting process and people will undermine it.
Yes.
In Germany, they use the A4 papers to go and do their votes. And you ask them, they tell you that Germans trust the Germans rather than trust machines. So it is, if the political elite allows the democratic process to run its course, allows people to go to the polling units, you can go to the polling units and vote with our existing conditions. I have observed the election in one country. The presiding officer came with the ballot papers, the ballot box, and all the equipment from her house. At the polling unit, she was the only electoral official. She appointed party agents of the other political parties. One was controlling the queue, one was doing the inking, one was tearing out ballot papers.
Obedience to authorities.
At the end of the day, the votes were counted, people were given the result sheets, and she folded everything, put inside the ballot box, flagged down the taxi, and left. You know, because people know that their results will end up at the right place without any challenge. So I think that the Nigerian people the civil society groups, the media must all join together and insist that our elections must be free, fair, and transparent, and that nobody should be allowed to undermine the democratic will of the Nigerian people.
Mr. Ojo, how can we redirect this orientation? The Nigerian, I don't want to make it look as if we are negative in our thoughts, but I mean, this thing boils down to the Nigerian attitude in every sphere, not in elections alone. Our attitude to everything we do.
Yeah, quite ironically, when we go abroad, we behave.
Because the system compels you.
It's about the reward and sanction system that Barrister Okoye talked about earlier on. What is the reward system? What is the sanction? If we can break the culture of impunity in our electoral system, we can get the big fish, the perpetrators and purveyors of violence, we can get them arrested, investigated, and prosecuted, and they are serving jail terms. If they can lose their seat, their exalted seat, after being found to have undermined the electoral process. Somebody was disqualified from contesting in Bayelsa because the court found out that that person provided false information. If you can also say, yes, you have been sworn in as a governor, but we have petitions, we've reviewed those petitions, we've investigated those petitions.
Talk about another office. The law does not allow you to touch a governor after he has been sworn in.
That's why we can amend Section 308, which gives you immunity from prosecution and arrest. In U.S., a former governor of New York went to see his girlfriend somewhere in Southern America for 2 weeks without due process, without the assembly granting him permission. When he came back, he faced a sanction and he was impeached. Not for crime, just because that was in an. So the point is, until we break the culture of impunity, because if we don't sanction people who are of bad conduct, who are giving our and they are very minor, they are very few, but they are very powerful. They are not the majority of political class, but they are the most powerful, most virulent, most resourceful, most established, most strength. So these people cannot be toyed with because they control the media, they control the state apparatus. So they can use everything to their own advantage. So if we are able to curtail these excesses of these desperate politicians, look, some people sponsor people to go and burn down INEC offices during the 2019 general elections. About 5 to 7 INEC offices was raised, who have been brought to book for conducting, for that bad behavior. Over 4,000 smart card readers were burnt down in Oka in broad daylight, who have been held responsible for that bad conduct. So until when we started this reward and sanction and make sure that we tighten the nut and bolt of our electoral laws and possibly set up a commission that will act like an EFCC, that will have power to effect arrest, investigate, and prosecute. Because as we have now, INEC only has power to prosecute. INEC does not have power to arrest, does not have power to investigate. It can only prosecute.
And even the prosecutorial powers is a burden on them.
It's even shared with the Attorney General office. So, and you know, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice are political office holders who are card-carrying members of their political parties. So many a time they finally prosecute, and that's where it ends. But by the time you start punishing people for bad behavior, which is the effort the commission tried to make, when some people put their returning officer under duress to make a wrong call during the 2019 election, and these people went to court, and the court said, look, INEC, you cannot withhold anybody's certificate of return, release it to them. Now, had it been that the court was in support of INEC exercising that power, it will have sent the right signal that you cannot put INEC collation or returning officer under pressure to make a wrong call. But with the court decision that, well, the commission has decided to challenge anyway on appeal, I hope they succeed on appeal, or even when it gets to Supreme Court, that INEC should have the power not to reward bad behavior, but to punish bad behavior. By that time, we start restoring sanity in the electoral process.
Okay, we're going to return to Lokoja, where Fisayo has more guests and more situation reports. Fisayo, we are back with you, and we want to know, as the day winds down, we want to see how people in Lokoja and how people in Kogi State are going to bed, and what will be on their minds as they expect to wake up tomorrow for the D-Day.
Mild in terms of the weather because of the rivers here, but somehow is perhaps even hotter than Abuja. But of course, the people here continue to express optimism that the elections will go well. The umpire is beaten. It's just to say that everything is in tip-top shape for a hitch-free exercise. Charles Alpha, as a background, on the preparation of INEC to ensure a seamless exercise.
Cherry subscribed at the beginning of the Fourth Republic in 1999, and ever since then, stakeholders have been working assiduously to sustain the periodic ritual. Conducting election anywhere has never been a walk in the park. It entails rigorous preparations by all stakeholders, the security, electorates, the political parties, and INEC. They all must work together to achieve the desired objective at any given time. In as much as the electorate, security, and political parties have their roles to play, bulk of the work is solely vested on INEC. This is what is playing out as Kogi, one of two states, prepares for electoral officers on electoral process, while also organizing sensitization program for stakeholders on the need to have a free, fair, and conclusive elections. The Commission has taken delivery of sensitive and non-sensitive materials and are badged in accordance to the number of registration areas in the state.
How prepared is INEC? The short answer is that we are ready. So far, the Commission has successfully implemented 12 out of the 14-point plan for the election as required by law. We have just 2 more activities outstanding. The first one is the last day of campaign, which is at midnight on Thursday, the 14th of November 2019. And the second is the election day itself, which is Saturday, 16th November 2019. The Commission has delivered all non-sensitive materials for the election to our office here in Lokoja. The sensitive materials for both the governorship and Kogi West senatorial run elections are ready. As usual, they have been handled by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The normal process of inspection and distribution of sensitive materials within the state will be done in the presence of party leaders, security agencies, observers, and the media. The resident electoral commissioner for Kogi State will communicate the date and time for stakeholders' inspection and the arrangement for deployment in line with the Commission's established procedure.
Card readers will be deployed during the election as polling units open from 8 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Only those on the queue before 2 will be attended to. Magnified glasses and braille ballot guides have been delivered to assist people who are visually impaired cast their ballot, while INEC has decided to give special consideration to pregnant women and people with disabilities to also cast their ballots without difficulties. In Lokoja, Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Thank you, Charles. Talking about sensitive or non-sensitive materials, those have also been distributed. Our own Deborah Iyola Samuel was there to witness the exercise and came back with this report.
Materials, which include ballot papers and result sheets for the senatorial and governorship election, were received by INEC officials Thursday morning.
Gladiators, the leaders of the country, seem reluctant to implement them. You would expect that everybody, both the citizenry and the government, want an improved electoral process. But we are seeing that from the Ways panel, various governments have been reluctant to implement recommendations by various panels. Why is that so? Ismail, why do you think it's so?
Well, thank you very much. Even though I'm not a politician, it is a bitter truth to be said that, the learned person here who said it, that he who goes to equity must go with clean hands. Yes. Everybody wants good. And everybody, I'm sure both the leaders and the led, they will want our electoral processes to be improved. But who should take the bull by the horn? That is the issue. And I expect
if you're in government, I think that's
well, I'll do that. I'll do that. No, it is honorable.
That's what someone in government is sworn in to do. Take the bull by the horn.
Yeah, excuse me. You see, it is honorable to do the right thing and lost an election, which the history will remember you for, than to keep on, well, Jide Ojo is already smiling. Maybe I'm speaking because I'm not a politician.
We talked about the Nigerian attitude. He laughed because will the Nigerian people remember you after you have lost an election?
It does not matter. Sorry, sir, it does not matter.
Yes.
History, remember Jonathan now as a person that lost election and quietly
the seat.
In fact, it is not only Nigeria, it is not only Africa, but the world remember him.
Yes.
Of what benefit for you to remain in power and did not exist? In fact, that is one of the problems we have in Africa. Sit-tight syndrome.
Okay.
Nobody knows the time to bow out, or nobody is ready to go as at the time that is supposed to go. I believe it is not the best. I think we have administration now that I believe that they are going to do the needful. Why did I believe that? Because the history will always remember somebody that has done something right, irrespective of what it cost you. And I urge politicians, even though they may not think in this direction, because I don't know what is at stake. That is what they will say.
Yes.
Like the politician will always want to be declared, irrespective of what happened.
Yeah.
We can now face it and we can now square it out. And in terms of legislation too, like you have rightly said to the questions, we have had more than enough recommendation that if put in practice with sincerity, I'm sure that our electoral process will have been producing. In fact, our institution needs to be strengthened. We need sincerity on the part of the political gladiators.
Okay.
The media is doing like what you are doing now. We need to discuss it. The academia, we need to start entrenching that while we are teaching the upcoming generation, we need to start imbuing them that it pays to be honorable. It pays to do good things, even though you are not recognized. But unfortunately, the country where we are, I think even your kingsmen will blame you for exiting from power by doing the right thing.
Now you told
your religious worship.
That usually sit on panel at the tribunal. Yes. From that 2010 amendment, it came to 3. Okay. So you now have 3 forming a full panel, 1 chairman and 2 members. From that, even from that 2010 amendment, we now have age reduction for INEC chairman, who was initially 50, brought down to 40 years. And then for resident national commissioners and resident electoral commissioner, whose initial ages before 2010 was 40 years, brought down to 35.
Yes.
Now, why have we not followed in that trajectory? I must commend President Muhammadu Musa Yar'Adua that in spite of his failings, in 2018, he still gave us some 5 constitutional amendments. About 4 out of those amendments border on elections. 1, pre-election matter now have timeline. 2, the not too young to run bill.
Then you're talking about President Muhammadu Buhari.
Yes, I'm talking about President. That's why I said in 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari signed 5 electoral reform bill, a constitutional amendment bill into law. So we have the not too young to run. We have the timeline for pre-election matters now put at 14 days for filing of matter and 180 days for the adjudication. We have even party deregistration provision amendment in section 225 of the Constitution. We have one that granted financial autonomy to state house of assembly and state judiciary. And then the last one was the one that says that if you have served out the term of your principal as a governor or as a acting governor or acting president, you can only have 1 more term. So but it will have been more far-reaching if the president has signed the electoral amendment bill in 2018, which he has not signed, but which we are now urging. So if President Buhari could push aside elite interest and say, look, I want to leave a lasting legacy. I want my name to resonate like that of my statesman, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. I'm going to do the needful. I'm going to give INEC the enormous powers that it needs. I'm going to give it unfettered access, unfettered powers to deal with criminal elements in the politics. I'm setting up this Electoral Offences Commission, which from 2008 down to 2014 constitutional conference, down to even Sheikh Lemu committee in 2011, down to even the Kenina Manu committee. All of these are in agreement that we need an Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal. If we have that, from 2020.
The main players do not believe in the democratic institutions, do not have this democratic spirit, do not even believe in free, fair, and transparent elections. No matter the type of design you have, they will will still find ways and means of undermining these institutions. So I think that the Nigerian people must make a determination on whether they want a strong, or whether they want strong institutions and strong electoral institutions and strong electoral process that can stand the test of time. If they do, my theory is that election riggers only go to constituencies that are vulnerable. There are constituencies where people on their own make a determination that you cannot rig elections here.
And you don't dare.
You can manipulate it elsewhere. But in this community, our votes will remain our votes, and our votes will definitely count. So we must take our destiny in our hands and engage in what I call mandate protection in order to protect our democratic institutions.
Okay, now this is, let's now go back to these two states. We have talked so much about the general atmosphere that can help these two states do well in this election. But then let's look at these two states. The Bayelsa state, for instance, its statistics should not frighten anybody. 8 local governments, 105 registration areas, and 1,804 polling units. That should look like a walkover for INEC. Why is it not this year? I think we have highlighted some of the issues.
Yes, it can be a walkover because despite the fact that we have only 8 local governments and 105 registration areas and a total of 1,804 polling units, the configuration and the topography of Bayelsa is difficult.
It's unique.
You have to hire boats, you have to hire gumbos, you have to have surveillance helicopters, and people have to be on the high sea for 5 hours. So the topography is completely difficult, and you have to also get life jackets for UCOR members that are going to go to some of these areas. But what is more important is the reverse logistics. After voting, when will the voting process end? And if the voting process ends at 6 o'clock in the evening, are you going to allow UCOR members and election materials, resources, and so on and so forth
to sleep over,
or enter the high sea at 9 o'clock in the night? It is next to impossibility. So despite the fact that you have just 105 registration areas, the topography is difficult and issues are very, very difficult. The history of the state also lends itself to electoral violence. So we have to take all these things into consideration in making an analysis of the registered voter population and the number of local governments and registration areas.
This information we have here, the consolidated PVC collection in Bayelsa state, also fits into this area, this matter you have raised. But then it also gives us an encouragement that the Bayelsa citizens really want to participate in the electoral process, because 923,182 are registered, but we have the collection of 96%, 96.3%, 889,308. Jide, it's like Bayelsa people are politically conscious. They really want to vote.
Yeah, they wanted to vote. They want to vote, and we do hope that their votes will count and be counted. And that's why I empathize with them, making such huge sacrifices, maybe because I have androphobia. I do not know how I will go 5-6 hours on ISIS because I want to.
That is you. You saw them. They are jubilant about it.
So they are jubilant, but somebody must pay me for me to make that. And I'm not sure that I can. But it tells you the story. 96% collection, even more than that of Kogi. Because in Kogi is 90.5 or 6%. Are collected. So 96% collection. And if they all will come out tomorrow and determine who their next governor will be. And incidentally, Mr. Moderator, what we are not even factoring in this discussion is there is a kind of dynamism between Bayelsa and Kogi. In Bayelsa, the governor has served out his 2 terms and is on his way out. So he has become a lame duck of a sort. In Kogi, the sitting governor is seeking re-election. So the power of incumbency is still very much with him. So those dynamics will also play out. But I want to pray and believe that the incident that happened, the very unfortunate incident that happened in Nembe 2 days ago, will not discourage the Bayelsa people. They will troop out en masse from Sagbama to Nembe to Southern Ijaw, down to Brass, down to every other nooks and cranny, including Yanegwa and Ogbea. They will come out and cast their ballot because INEC has made adequate provision for 100%, not even for 96% of them.
Ismail, let's go to Kogi State now, and 21 local governments, but we are concerned now about gender distribution of PVC collections and registration for election. It's always in the favor of women, even though we have a less percentage for women here. They have 54% men and 45% for women. But then it still shows that the women are interested in the political process. For Kogi State, what's the factor there?
Well, it is the political awareness. And it is not only that the women are interested in participating in their franchise, but also they are benching in contesting and even take Lugard House. You can see the candidate of SDP that has been disqualified before, she made her way through legal process in. That's to tell you. And if you take your time to watch throughout the campaign, you see how the women are zealous. You see how the women...
I think that was for Bayelsa. What we showed there was, this is Bayelsa now. And the figures I read out are for Bayelsa. So now you can talk to that.
It generally showed the political awareness that is entrenched in that state. The question that we should ask now, you can see that even the women are matching the men in terms of political participation. But does that translate to their own physical life? What is the percentage of the women in Bayelsa cabinet? Contesting.
Yes.
And what is the level of empowerment that the men has decided? Because we cannot deny the fact that our political space is being marginalized or is being monopolized by the men from the federal to the state, like we are seeing. However, I think it's good. It's a very good turnout.
Yes.
The female having 45%. Soon, I think they will be asking for the seat too.
Yes.
The only problem that is there is that in this gender distribution, it occurs to me, or it appears to me, that women are sitting down to wait for the time that the men will come will say to come and take. And it will be very difficult in our political development that men will say, okay, we have eaten enough, come and take. But it's a good development. It's indeed impressive. It shows the acronym that always says that what men can do, women can also do better. I think they should be considered for political appointment, for elective posts, and for more development for women. Not only using for element of seeking political office and voting them to power.
If I can chip in something, Mr. Medreto, as we are discussing gender, incidentally, we have 3 women out of 45 in Bayelsa, and 3 women out of 23, out of 24 in Kogi. So when you look at the percentage participation, though they are both 3-3, but there is higher percentage of women in Kogi than in Bayelsa. Because of the number of female contestants in the vis-a-vis the men.
And the figures for the participation, men and women, look similar in Kogi.
In terms of numerics.
In terms of numerical strength.
Yes. We had the Kogi map for the number of local governments, but we are back to Bayelsa now with the local government, 8 local governments, with each of them having this is the number of uncollected PVCs in each of the local governments. Not very high, I would say. So in Yenagoa, surprisingly, which is the state capital,
the seat of power.
I think people are too busy doing business that 19,000 people have not collected their PVCs. But in the rural areas, you see, in fact, in Ijo South, only 605 people did not collect their PVCs.
But that is
we have been told to watch out for South Ijo.
That Southern Ijo is the local government with the highest population of registered voters. But the interest, I must state, the interest of Southern Ijo to have mobilized its citizens to correct their PVC may not be totally unconnected with the fact that one of their sons is the main contender. That's the candidate of APC in Bayelsa State.
Okay. So
we have to also look at, if you look at Yenagoa, you will also realize that we have two tertiary institutions, big tertiary institutions there. The Federal University in Otuoke and the Niger Delta University. And some of these students registered while they were on campus. And some of them didn't collect their permanent voters cards as they graduated. So that may explain to a certain extent the high level of or high number of PVCs that have not been collected. Yes.
Kogi, let's go back to the local government in Kogi. The local government, and then we can talk about their rate of PVC collection now. Here, the thousands are rolling in now in Kogi. But let's first talk about the number of local governments, Mr. Okoye, and the deployment. Of course, the local government and their population will determine your kind of deployment, the population, the number of PV, the number of card readers, the number of staff personnel. So speak to us about the twist in Kogi.
Well, you know, Kogi has a total of 21 local government and 239 registration areas. It also has a total of 2,548 polling units. And we also created some voting points in relation to this particular election. So Kogi State has a higher voter population, has a high number of registration areas, and a larger number of polling units. If some of the local governments are also problematic in terms of terrain. So we have factored all these things into consideration. Ibaji, for instance, has some challenge with flooding, and the electoral officer for Ibaji local government met with us, and he has had some stakeholder meetings with the main stakeholders there, and they decided to move to a higher area. So they have recalibrated some of the polling units to accommodate the challenges. And now in some of the other local governments, they are very far. So we deploy to the local governments, and we are very, very confident at our level of deployment to some of these local governments. So we really don't have huge challenges in some of these local governments, and we are confident that things are moving on well in Kogi State.
Now, PVC collection in Kogi East is quite impressive. Dekina has 151,000, and then all other Ajaokuta 60. Ajaokuta is in the central. Ampa has 118,000. So Kogi East has always had the figures traditionally in elections. But then let's look at Kogi Central, where Okene is, the hometown of the governor, and we have 129,000 collected PVCs. Okehi, Ogori Magongo, and all that. Those Okehi has 75. It always has the population. Ogori Magongo has a very small number. Kogi West also are looking for the numbers this time, so they seem to have come out. Mr. Ojo, what do you say about the wave of PVC collections in Kogi State?
Well, I think, again, kudos to the people, Kogites as they call themselves, that at least they were able to get 90% PVC collection, which then means that they are very enthusiastic about this election. But you can see about where the votes will come from. The sitting governor is from Okene, and he has 129,681. And that, if his people comes out massively to vote for him, he will be able to contest very easily with Dekina, with 151,763. And you can just understand why there was attack on Natasha Akpoti. Natasha Akpoti, from what I gather, is from Okeyi. So Okeyi is also in the central.
Yes.
So there are insinuations to the fact that she has come to play a spoiler's role.
Okay.
So that you can't have two strong candidates from the central.
Ismail, the PVC collections may not reflect voter turnout. We have seen it. Are you expecting that this time around PVC collection will show in the voter turnout?
Well, we expect that. Indeed, Kogi State is one of the very enlightened states in terms of voters turnout. They have the history of participating actively in election simply because of the peculiarities in the state. You see, Kogi State has this tribal inclination in terms of governance. The Kogi East has always had the numerical strength, who, since the creation of the state, has always produced the governor of the state. And the Kogi Central, who, whether you call unfortunately, has always taken the second seat. They have always contending that Lugard house with the Kogi East. Now that they had opportunity now, and I'm sure that you have seen from the PVC collection, all the 5 local governments in Kogi Central, you expect a very high turnout from them, because they know that the Kogi East always have the numerical strength as ahead of them, and their own is on the verge line now. They are to decide whether he continue in the office or somebody else within the state will come and take it. And you know that the politics we play in Nigeria, so to say, is still politics of sectionalism, politics of tribalism, politics of our own on the altar of merit. Nobody wants to know who is there to do the job and do it well. But people want to have a feeling it's our own, it's our son. In fact, it's from our own section of the country. It's quite unfortunate, but I expect that what we are seeing here, there will be high turnout comes tomorrow election.
Let's end up with Mr. Okoye, because he has he knows what INEC has put into it. Are you positive that this voter PVC collection will be reflected in voter turnout?
I think people are enthusiastic. People are ready to go and vote. What they expect from us is to stage to the polling units on time, and we have put in everything that is possible to enable us to stage to the polling units on time. And we only appeal to the people to be patient. We appeal to them to be orderly, and we appeal to them to turn out en masse to exercise their democratic franchise. And we also appeal to the political parties and the political elite to allow the people to be the only determinant of who gets elected and who does not get elected. But we are confident that with the cooperation and partnership and consultation we've had with the security agencies, that everything will go well in both states. And I think that if everything goes well, the negative narrative about these two states being being prone to violence and being places where elections never go well, will become a thing of the past. So we are very positive. We are confident that things will go well tomorrow.
Mr. Festus Okoye there, a National INEC Commissioner in charge of information and voter education, lawyer, has given us the final word of optimism on this segment as we look at the elections for Kogi State, governorship elections and senatorial election in Kogi State, and then Bayelsa State tomorrow. We also have had Jide Ojo, a public commentator, analyst, and a columnist, who has given us his insight into why elections are the way they are in Nigeria. We also thank Ismail Momo Zakari, a lecturer with the Bayes University here in Abuja. Thank you, gentlemen, for livening up our night and day and giving hope to the election that will come up in, tomorrow in Kogi State and Bayelsa State. Thank you very much, YouTube viewer, for staying on with us. Our studio will open again tomorrow at 7 o'clock, and so we would expect you to know that 7 a.m. in the morning, we shall be opening our studio to follow the trend of voting and electoral process in Kogi and Bayelsa State. Until then, I remain yours, Femi Okewo, thanking you for being part of this section.